Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to High on History. It's been such a long time. I'm Jordan.
And I'm Liz, and it's been 3 weeks. It's been 3 weeks.
I mean, it's been a long time. We had a wonderful winter break. We deserved it. It was a long rest. And here we are again, back with the Enlightenment. Previous episodes, we had discussed Voltaire and Rousseau in depth, and in that process of us going through Voltaire and Rousseau, we really understood that we really needed to kind of go down a separate rabbit hole and check out the Enlightenment.
Yeah, the whole movement, because it's so critical to the... First of all, it's the story of the 1700s. It really is. And it is absolutely critical to everything that happened both in the French Revolution, which, believe it or not, is still the point
of all of this.
Of this whole season. But also, really, to the history of the world and the democracies of today.
Oh, absolutely.
None of the modern democracies of today could have existed without this moment. So it's very, very important.
Yeah.
And we're going to cover it in depth,
So here we are with the Age of Reasoning of 1715 is about the time when it really, started, the viral, everyone was talking about it. It was published in all the pamphlets. It was getting going. In 1715, Voltaire was a big part of that movement. Rousseau was a big part of that movement at that time.
John Locke,
Diderot.
Montesquieu.
Yeah.
We cannot forget Montesquieu.
Montesquieu's my hero,
right?
At this point,
yeah.
So before we really get into it, this Enlightenment period, like I said, was 1715 to about 1789. But in reality, the Enlightenment still affects today. So we could really bring it into 2026. The Enlightenment is still affecting all of us.
Yeah, there's the Enlightenment, and then there's everything post-Enlightenment. Nope.
Yeah. So, now, the core values, what the Enlightenment really focused on was embracing reason and the scientific method. Now, we all kind of know about the scientific method of forming a hypothesis, testing your hypothesis, and then re-examining yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that is predominantly how we analyze math and science. Well, the Enlightenment said apply it to everything. Apply it to life, apply it to politics, apply it to everyday aspects.
Education, social interaction.
Yep.
And reason, the ability to use one's internal logic to get there was the...
Yeah. And a key point of reasoning and using the scientific method was to challenge the authoritarianism of the church and of the absolute monarchy. Why do they have power and why are they doing this to us? We don't deserve to be starving.
Right.
So...
Because the conditions for the average Frenchman in this time was just awful. Even people who were fairly well off really were not.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the wealth inequality was not as bad as it is today, actually.
Right.
That's weird, but it was really, really bad.
Mm-hmm. So, a lot of their ideas set the groundwork for the radical shift in worldview. And man, it was insanely radical. You got the French Revolution, the American Revolution. You pretty much got the start of what is considered World War I, where there was secession of the Polish power, there was a secession for the Austrian throne. There was many, many different conflicts. And France had their hand in all of these wars that were going on simultaneously.
The Bourbon and Habsburg houses had their hands in every single one of these wars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Worldwide. And ultimately this shift of the Enlightenment set up the world today for what it is, set up modern democracy, the societies, our ideas of human rights, human equality, the abolitionist movement, inspired ideas, the women's suffrage movement took ideas from the Enlightenment, and everything that we have today on a political social structure really does come from the Enlightenment. all the way down to our own individual liberties of life and freedom. And
yeah, we would not be having, we could not be having conversations today without, like the conversations today about human dignity, if it hadn't been for the work of these Enlightenment thinkers. Yeah. So, and to understand the backdrop, you have to know that the ancient regime was just fundamentally, first of all, its application was arbitrary.
Right.
Like, just absolutely arbitrary.
They got divine right from God to be king.
Right. And so anything they said went, and it didn't matter who the injustice was really committed against. It was terribly unjust. So the Enlightenment thinkers start highlighting reason and rationality in order to dismantle this idea of absolute monarchy. Like, down with the absolute monarchy, right? They also really start questioning church authority. Now, this winds up, like, in the story of all this dismantling of church authority is every bit as important as the dismantling of the monarchy authority.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we can see that a lot of what went wrong during the revolution as a result of this was because they didn't have great replacements for the old systems.
Oh yeah, no, there was
and
nothing
particularly
like
church
democracy before that.
Right, and there was nothing, well, there was, but you have to get way into ancient British history. Oh. Anyway, that's another thing. That's another thing.
That's another rabbit hole for another day.
Yeah, that's another rabbit hole for another day. Essentially, they did. They just had the audacity to question the divine right of kings. And they were like, we're just not sure God put you on this throne. And if we're not sure God put you on this throne, we're not sure you have the right to be king. We believe that a monarchical power must flow from the consent of the people.
Right, absolutely.
Right? Okay, so what I have here is they argued that the legitimacy of government flows from the citizens rather than divine will or doctrine. Yeah.
So, out of the ancient regime, there were actually a couple different monarchies that we're about to get into who actually did try to accept the Enlightenment. And their loophole to that, I do find kind of logically ironic for the fact that they applied reason and the scientific method for allowing themselves to stay in absolute power.
Right. They wanted, they thought, well, if I have absolute power and I apply reason, then everything will work out fine.
Right.
And they really did. They bought that idea.
And a lot of their constituents, a lot of their people absolutely did accept that because they had been in power for so long that it would just make sense to keep them in. It was
the natural order of things.
Right?
Or at least that was the thinking for a lot of people.
Absolutely. And also these Enlightenment despotism royal figures also did a lot of social reform. They applied education. They changed their laws. They did what they could to be like, see, everything for the people, nothing by the people.
Right.
And that was said actually, that nothing for the people,
everything for the people, nothing by the people
was actually a quote by Emperor Joseph the second
of Austria,
I just had to make sure I had his number correct. But yeah, he was of Austria, he was the Holy Roman Emperor. And that quote really does embrace that they were for trying to be there, trying to provide their people with what they need. But now, they also had, Joseph specifically abolished serfdom. In my opinion, Joseph was actually probably one of the more enlightened out of all of the figures who tried to use their reasoning to stay in power, because he abolished serfdom. He actually promoted full religious tolerance. It wasn't just for the Calvinists and Catholics to get along. It was for the Muslims to get along with everybody. It was for the Jews to get along with everybody. It was for everybody to be religiously tolerated.
Which, remember, under Louis XIV, he briefly, now he did revoke the Edict of Nantes, right? But briefly he had also a policy of religious tolerance. But in France, that did not apply to the Huguenots, really, not to the Calvinists.
Yeah.
So there were branches of religion, even in Louis XIV's more enlightened days,
right,
where he didn't really give that same level. This is a much more enlightened position Joseph takes.
Right. Now, Joseph also did believe that the state should be a source of welfare for the citizen. He also promoted press freedom. Joseph was a patron to a lot of the thinkers that we're about to cover in the upcoming episodes.
Well, also in Voltaire, too. Wasn't he Voltaire's patron?
I do believe he was a patron of Voltaire. I know they were friends.
Ah.
But Joseph II of Austria, despite these reforms, he had no real interest in actually giving his people a voice. He still wanted his absolute power.
Right, that was the nothing by the people.
Yep.
Yeah, he wanted absolutism.
Yep. And guided by reason, according to Joseph, he knows best for the population. And yes, he talks in the third person. That was, again, another direct quote by him.
Oh my gosh. See, these guys are so...
Yeah.
And the more educated they get, the more arrogant they become. That is the thing, yeah.
Okay. That's on
yeah. So, another one of these enlightened despot... monarchs, yeah, is... really, this probably comes as no surprise to anybody. Queen Catherine the Great of Russia. Now, she ruled from 1762 to 1796. She also embraced some Enlightenment principles. So actually, in Russia, under her, serfdom is expanded.
Yeah.
It's actually vastly expanded. But she corresponded with Voltaire and Denis Diderot.
Yep. She was a patron to Diderot, I'm pretty sure.
She was. She was a patron to Diderot. You're absolutely right. She promoted political and educational reforms. I'm sorry that it says political and educational reforms, and then I'm not going to tell you what those reforms are. And that's because I don't yet know, because we aren't covering Russia yet.
Yeah.
And so Queen Catherine will get her own due.
Oh, I can't wait to do the biography
we're going to, of course...
Catherine.
We are going to, of course, cover all of this someday. We're going to be here a while. So let's see. She brutally suppressed the Pugachev Rebellion.
Yeah.
She expanded serfdom. Yeah, we'll get back to the great Queen Catherine, as we should, because she just deserves her very own spot.
I'm so excited for the day we get to Russia. So
Russia is going to be so much fun to cover. So much fun. And then another of these examples of these Enlightenment despots is Frederick the Great of Prussia.
Ah, yes. He was another patron to many great thinkers. Wasn't he with Rousseau at one point, too?
I believe he was, yeah. 1740 to 1786 is when he reigns.
I know Voltaire pissed him off.
Another absolute monarch. Again, he really wanted to keep a hold of that absolutism. But he was a patron of Voltaire.
Yep.
And he also allowed for religious tolerance. He codified laws. But he also maintained. Now, unlike Catherine, he didn't expand serfdom, but he actually worked really hard to maintain serfdom in Prussia. So,
I mean, but isn't Prussia, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't it pretty much a kingdom of a bunch of little micro kingdoms that just kind of all banded under one crown at one point?
So that is like very much the story of Europe in general. And if we had started this this part of European history, I think in a more chronological way, starting around 1000, we would see how these
actual kingdoms
came to be, and then eventually died. So yes. Very much the way that Bavaria today is considered a part of Germany, but actually it was for just ages and ages it was its own kingdom also.
Oh yeah.
Right. So these monarchs, Frederick, Catherine, Joseph, they're not the only Enlightenment monarchs. Capet. Louis Capet tries, I think,
Marie Antoinette was
an Enlightenment monarch. So these are just a few examples. This was sweeping Europe.
Were the monarchs during the 1715s and the early Enlightenment monarchs.
And this idea sweeps across Europe, but these were early adopters.
Yeah.
Their attempts at reform just never did quite go far enough because, again, they're trying to hold on to absolute power. Anything that threatens that power, they, of course, continue to suppress. They refused to relinquish the whole notion of absolutism. And in the end, only revolution actually, like, it is true that what eventually brought that world order, as it was in Europe, the ancient regime, brought it to his knees, was violent, bloody revolution.
Yeah.
Now, we can sit here and make moral judgments. I think it's easy. I thought it was easy to make a moral judgment about who is right and wrong and all this stuff.
The more I'm getting into this,
I don't think that's an easy question anymore.
Yeah.
Not that I'm saying I'm for monarchs or absolutism all of a sudden. I'm definitely for sure not. But
I mean, some of
the upsetting of that old system, it actually, you could say we never recovered from it.
Yeah, and some of the innocent bystanders, just people who were
regular people,
just regular nobility,
the vast majority
nobility,
regular
who
people,
really interact with the king, who just happen to have that extra luxurious name because their family's a knight. Doesn't mean they're actually up there with the monarchy. They just get to enjoy a little extra privilege. Their lives were turned upside down, and they actually had nothing to do with what was going on above them. They were just right above the bourgeoisie court class themselves.
Right. And I mean, in the end, it wound up, if you go even further, of course, I mean, I know we need to get back to the car.
I'm freaking out because my string went through the hole into my coffee cup, whipped out, splashed coffee all over my glasses. The whole camera caught the whole thing too.
Yep. We don't record these live. We do record these,
but we have no way of editing.
But yeah, we're not video editors. So here you go.
Okay.
But oh, you know what? And I also forgot where I was going. The sad thing is I'm going to watch this back later and be like, oh, I remember.
Oh, right? And no way to edit in a little timestamp.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so go ahead.
Okay, so, out of all of the political enlightenment through the revolutions that had to upheave and bring down the old monarchs to their knees, the Enlightenment also produced a core set of terms, language that was never heard before.
Right.
The people who were printing these pamphlets, the people who were talking Voltaire, Diderot,
pamphlets,
Paine.
I could just go on and on.
Right? Right? Just like the memes today. These concepts transformed the world around them. And we had phrases like the natural rights of men that built the framework for the justifications of both the French and the American revolutions. And it ultimately brought about the overthrowing of arbitrary power, establishing new governments based on literally what we stand for: liberty and justice.
Right. And in fact, those words, the way they were used, that provides the literal framework, the groundwork for the democracy of today. We would have none of this without their work. And I mean, it is sad because their words were twisted. It took us a long time to actually come in. And did we ever get to the ideals of the Enlightenment thinkers? No, we did not.
Because we don't practice the general will of Rousseau. We don't have the freedom of true government the way Montesquieu expressed.
I mean, I gotta give the United States more credit than I'll give a lot of the other democracies. They really applied Montesquieu's separate. We're gonna get into these guys, I promise.
Couple episodes from now.
Yeah, they really did take Montesquieu's separation of powers, checks and balances.
Yeah, the U.S. did.
The U.S. actually really tried to apply those principles, and to be fair, they've held up until super recently. So also, Voltaire argued for religious tolerance. That's the other. We're always dealing in the Enlightenment in two arenas because in the era that built them, this was one arena. The religious aspect and the political aspect.
And they had to be separated.
And they needed to be separated. So Voltaire argued for religious tolerance and for the separation of church and state. The Enlightenment passionately demanded intellectual and religious freedom. That meant the freedom to question the king's reality and to question the church's reality. Just because a church said you might go to hell for not tithing 10% when you're dirt poor.
Right.
How is this justice, right?
That's extortion.
And so that's extortion. And the Enlightenment thinkers are the first to say, hold the phone here, right?
Yep.
I mean, not that there were phones. So,
No, that's still another 100 years from now, at least.
Right? Hold the violins.
Stop the Pony Express.
Right? They argued religious persecution and enforced dogma creates the opposite of rational free society. So you can't get to a rational free society. You cannot call yourself free if you're being ruled by oppressive religious persecution and dogma.
Right. And that even comes with the absolute authority of the king being appointed by God. And
like, obviously,
it was not separated back then.
Exactly. Because so they're really upending that whole system. Right? And then most of the Enlightenment philosophers didn't want to ban religion entirely. Let's be clear. There is a moment in France during the revolution / post-revolution where they do, in fact, attempt to ban
all religion.
Christianity. Well, no, not even all religion, because they tried to replace it with this weird political state religion.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's so weird.
We'll get there.
I can't wait till we get there, because that is fun.
I remember that.
But, like, they did, they did that in revolutionary France. That's not what the Enlightenment thinkers said. They had lived through a time where the Calvinists and the Huguenots and the Catholics and the Protestants were all constantly at literal war with each other. We've covered these wars.
We've talked about the battles,
There's so much blood on the field by this point over religion. And so these people are like, hey, let's start using science and reason to get past. They're trying to move past these religious wars is really the goal here.
Yep.
So they argued for freedom of religion. And then they also sought to simply remove the church from political power. That was the other thing. They said, we will never do this until the church no longer is the say-so manipulating kings.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, even if we didn't have a king in power, even if we did have the separate branches, we still couldn't have religion interfering with those branches.
And I just want to add this in real fast. It doesn't make it into the cards, but just like they were not arguing for the total abolition of religion, these early Enlightenment thinkers actually also were not advocating for the complete abolition of monarchies. They were advocating for constitutional monarchies. So they still thought that a leader should be in charge. They didn't have a problem with...
They were not anarchists.
And they didn't even have most of them were not actually arguing for full democracy.
Yeah.
Not in the beginning. They were arguing for a constitution that guided the monarch as well as the people. So they were arguing for the rule of law.
Right.
Ultimately.
Anyway. Yeah. So... in the Age of Reasoning, there was also a bunch of revolutionary foundations. We've mentioned the American Revolution. We've mentioned the French Revolution. I am going to briefly talk on the American Revolution that started in 1776. And the Enlightenment itself justified the independence by citing King George's failure to protect our natural rights as it is the most interestingly adopted for a national constitution based off of Montesquieu's separation of power, which we've mentioned Montesquieu. I think he'll be in either the next episode.
No, I think he's in episode 3.
You think he's in episode 3?
Next one, yeah.
Okay, episode 2 of the Enlightenment.
No. I said episode 3.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I screwed you up. Yes, he's in episode 3. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
He's the guy who argues for the separation of powers. Checks and balances.
And then also, a big founder of the American independence, the revolution, was John Locke's concept of popular sovereignty, life, liberty, and property. Jefferson ends up switching property to the pursuit of happiness later on.
This is actually really important. There's good philosophical arguments to be made for why Locke is correct and Jefferson is not.
Yeah.
Or some might say they are both correct and there's good reason to... because property, as it turns out, is actually on the... I don't know if you know this, the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but they found out that humans have need for not just food, air...
But a space of their own.
It turns out property is a human biological need, a literal right. Yeah. So I think when we switch property...
To the pursuit of happiness.
Which is a much more ephemeral sort of idea. I don't think it was as ephemeral for Jefferson as it is for us. He was trying to be gracious and give everybody their own pursuit of happiness.
Right.
But
it has been twisted.
It did fundamentally twist what John Locke was saying in a way that one could say was ultimately detrimental. Anyway, not to distract.
Actually, I'm on card 14, so that means it's your turn for the next
excellent.
point.
I'm sorry. Excellent. All right, here we go. So, the first of the manifestos, there were several amazing documents published in this time, the Revolutionary Manifestos. The first of these is the Declaration of Independence, which of course was signed in 1776.
Yep.
And I mean, as an American, you would expect me to have a bunch of glowing things to say about the Declaration of Independence, and I do. As a historian, as somebody who has come to understand the Enlightenment movement, I don't think enough can be said. I had to really limit myself because we could do an entire episode on the Declaration of Independence.
We probably will
at some point.
Get to the Americas.
It is that important. I think that is also true of the declarations of the rights of
I would like to
of
go,
man and of the citizen
when we
in
get
France.
To that, I think we need to definitely do a side episode deep dive on both of those.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the Declaration of Independence was signed by the North American colonies, declaring themselves free from British rule. Yeah. There is so much, like, that one sentence actually just very much glosses over this huge, long history. We are not doing that because we are on the French Revolution, I swear. It was written largely by Thomas Jefferson himself, but it includes John Locke's ideas, life, liberty, and we just talked about this, pursuit of happiness, pursuit of property. I don't know what more there is to say. It would be worth just deep diving these documents of themselves. We're going to get to these other documents too. And they are so bold and they are so amazing. They built multiple nations. We should talk about them, but I swear that's not what we're doing this season just yet.
Right. So following the American Declaration of Independence, in 1791, the newly formed United States ended up passing the first of the 10 amendments. The first 10 amendments to the United States Constitution, which is a document that today remains critically important, and more than 230 years later, it is still the foundation. It is still what makes America great. The Bill of Rights explicitly guarantees our protections for the rights of the people to assemble, worship as we choose. We have the rights to the press and to freedom of speech, and to never actually to never be forced to quarter soldiers and to be free from search and seizures. Like, it grants us the protection of our property. It grants us the protection of our life and liberty. It gives us everything that
our freedom of expression.
Yeah, it gives us everything that these men, these women of history fought and lost their lives to. There were a lot of people.
So many people died to make this, to make the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, the Declaration. So many people died to make those things a reality.
We're going to talk about a woman who wrote a version for the women of France.
Oh, I cannot
wait.
And
she was killed, executed by guillotine.
Are we going to cover her as a separate episode?
She won't be a separate episode. She's briefly mentioned in a later episode.
I don't know. I feel like maybe she's worth...
I feel like when we get later into the actual revolution, closer to the Age of Terror, that is something we should consider.
We're talking about Mary Wollstonecraft.
No, I'm talking about a different woman.
Oh!
Yeah, I'm talking about a different woman. Mary Wollstonecraft didn't get killed. She wasn't executed. She was a British woman.
Oh.
I'm talking about a French woman.
Oh.
Who wrote the Declaration of the Rights of Women. And the citizen of the female, or the female citizen.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so I guess apparently I do have a side episode to go down.
Yeah, we've got upcoming stuff, I guess.
So the Bill of Rights, I said that. It gives us all of everything. So then I guess that would be to you.
Yeah. And then, okay, so the Bill of Rights was was signed in 1791.
Yep.
So, that is 2 years after the 1789 adopted. Okay, so the National Constituent Assembly, one of many of France's assemblies, in 1789 adopted the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen. I actually found a Yale copy of that document online. I'm going to link it. I'm going to link it in the video so that you guys can read it for yourselves. It's an extremely bold document.
Yeah.
It is more bold than the Bill of Rights.
Right.
So that's kind of important to know. It was largely inspired by Rousseau and Montesquieu, and it declares that liberty consists of the freedom to do everything which injures no one else.
Do as you will, harm none. Isn't that the witch's creed?
Now, and this is interesting. I'm not going to get into this. I'm not going to get into this yet. But yes, the Enlightenment also birthed the rebirth of neo-paganism.
Yep.
And you can see that reflected today in the fact that in modern Wicca, this is actually the fancy way to say, and harm it none, do what you will.
Yep.
Just putting that out there. We make these little connections in history because that's what we do. Okay, so it was the ideological engine that ultimately shifted the entire political structure. That idea shifts the entire political framework, the blueprint, to the people, to the public square. And it serves as the blueprint for the liberal states, shaping future foundational documents. So also other constitutions wind up later being based, as we see, the Bill of Rights, which is 2 years after this, is based on this document, the Declarations of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen.
Right, yeah.
It is essentially the bedrock of all of modern social democracy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So now we're getting into deism. So I'm actually a big fan of some of the deism
story is told
movements.
Politically and religiously.
And honestly, we couldn't really find a good spot to really talk about the substitution or the birth of deism. Really, it was a new idea to replace Catholicism, and we couldn't really find anywhere else to put it. Other than right here at the very beginning of the episode.
I mean, we might want to do, sometime in the future, an entire season that talks about, or maybe more than one season that talks about religious history. Because history's really told in both of these ways. Political history and religious history. And they have overlap, but they're not neatly synced up or anything.
Yeah. So, the Enlightenment thinkers weren't only interested in just stripping away the church from their political power, they also sought to apply reason and rationality to question God as well. Now, in 1802, is that what that says?
Yes.
Okay. William Paley, okay, proposed that God created the perfect universe as has no need to interfere, allowing the functions and mechanisms of the universe to operate. Okay, so this is a clockwork God theory. This is actually older than that.
When I found so I looked this up and I only found William Paley in 1802, the watchmaker God. Is what I found when
I found an older version of the story of this.
So it did mention. Okay, so starting in the 1700s and sort of culminating in the 1802 writings of William Paley, there becomes increasingly this notion, and I seem to remember in philosophy class, noting that it wasn't Kant. And it wasn't Hume. Hume argued against this, actually. It was somebody else.
Locke, I think it was.
No, it wasn't Locke either. Oh, it was Descartes?
It was
Descartes. Okay, so we haven't somehow we've missed Descartes in all of this, but...
Because he's in the 1600s.
Because he's in the 1600s, right? And we're in the 1700s. So starting with Descartes, we begin to enter this era where God is perceived of as having created a perfect clock universe. Now, they did this because they couldn't understand why there were no miracles. Right. Reason told them angels didn't come from the sky. Reason told them that miracles didn't happen. People suffered and died for no good reason every day. They could see that with their own eyes. Violence, war.
Disease.
It's all injustice, right? Yeah. So then you needed an explanation. Why isn't God interfering? God created a perfect universe. He doesn't have to interfere anymore.
Yep.
Sorry, I did not mean to take that over. I just studied that in college, and I love it.
That is perfect. I appreciate. And honestly, like I said, I know the mechanism, the clockwork mechanism God began way earlier. So
it did.
And you were absolutely right. It didn't actually, fully become kind of a universal concept until about the 1800s, which it takes about 100 years for an idea to set in.
It's the early post-Enlightenment period.
Yeah.
So it's when William Paley is writing, he's writing purely based on Enlightenment ideas.
From 100 years worth of
paradigm.
Writing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and back then, it took 100 years for an Enlightenment idea to actually become kind of a universal thought. Nowadays, universal thoughts become so much easier to spread because we
literally can change them in a matter of weeks.
Weeks, yeah.
Yeah.
Where back then, it took much longer to get the information accepted around the world.
And yet pamphlets, like, for these people, pamphlets were doing all the legwork. It was they were 100 years for them was a massively accelerated spread. So that's important to know,
right? And also, the clockwork mechanism idea for God also allowed people to discover the truth for themselves, independent of the religious doctrinations.
Right. Right, the Enlightenment really focused on the individual as the ultimate, their own moral judgment.
Right. And I believe we're all kind of familiar with the golden rule, and no, not he who has the gold makes the rule, but do unto others as you would have done unto you. It's a common quote out of the Bible. Where we do not harm each other.
Can I point out, this didn't get brought up in the Enlightenment, but the early Hebrew translation of this idea is actually, do not do unto others what you would not have done unto you. Which I think is
Ooh, yeah.
The fact that got missed in all of this, I think is kind of a tragedy, because the earlier Hebrew version makes a lot more sense. Do not do unto others what you would not have done to you. I think that is...
right. And again, that just shows the evolution
of an idea, because that turns into do unto others as you would have done to you, and then that turns into something else, right?
Yep. And that actually becomes, if all humans possess the power of reason, then everyone deserves equal respect. And that's true.
Right. Right. If we are all capable of reason, we are all worthy of respect.
Yep. And I mean, again, do unto others as you would have done to you is also, again, another neo-pagan wit creed. And that takes us over to you.
Yeah, and to utilitarianism. Now here we're starting to move a little bit forward in time, because this was an overview of the Enlightenment. We're going to get into the details in some upcoming episodes. We're going to cover a lot of this in more detail.
Yep.
But the result of this type of thinking kind of turns out to be utilitarianism. Now, that rose as an alternative to the religious authority that they are yeeting the idea of religious authority. They are done with that. The church has been so corrupt. It's stolen so much money. Absolutely. It is no longer actually serving the absolution or needs of the people. Good people who are poor are being executed for no reason at all, while criminals in the upper echelons get away with absolutely anything, including murdering the peasantry, right?
Oh boy.
People have decided they're done with that, right? They've got this new idea about what justice looks like. And utilitarianism kind of becomes the thing that initially takes the place of that old religious authority.
Right.
It's based on rational thought and argues for ethics based on individual actions.
Yeah.
And the contributions that maximize utility that benefits the greater good. So basically what they're saying is, look, if you make beer and you are serving the people, you are contributing. Your ethics are then to make good beer so that you can make good money. So it's a utilitarian, it's sort of a transactional way of thinking.
Right.
But the idea was that all of your individual actions and your moral judgment and your own ethical individual discernment is what you need to use to...
The idea of pursuit of happiness. chase your dreams.
Chase your dreams, and this creates the greater good.
Yep.
Now, I think this worked for them because I think these people deeply fell in love with Rousseau's notion of the inherent
the romanticism ideas of the Enlightenment.
Well, the inherent goodness of man. Rousseau had written that, children were born into this state that is inherently good, that mankind was inherently good. These people, mixing the Catholicism that they are throwing away, right, with ideas like Rousseau, see the innocent state of man as an inherently good creature that society corrupts. So they think if you leave a person just absolutely free to be themselves, then those people are inherently good and society will automatically, ultimately benefit.
Absolutely.
This is the idea of utilitarianism. And in fact, most of the Enlightenment. It's beautiful. I gotta say, I know we're about to get into the critiques. It's naive.
It unfortunately is a little naive. So throughout this season, we're going to explore how the lofty ideas of John Locke, Rousseau, Voltaire, and Montesquieu were ultimately twisted to create the revolutionary terrors that we see in France, and the subsequent destabilization. Yeah, what she said. Of all the ancient regimes of Europe. And by the 20th century, philosophers such as Theodore Adorno, as well as Max, I don't speak German, so please bear with me on that. I believe his last name is Horkheimer.
I had this earlier. Yes.
I do believe it's pronounced Horkheimer.
Max Horkheimer, yes.
Yeah. And they all suggest that the Enlightenment thinkers of who we are discussing with Locke, Rousseau, and Voltaire, and so on, their belief in the inevitable progress blinded them to the use of reason by applying brutally. By the use of reason that can be applied brutally, bringing about horror and no true liberation. They ended up arguing that the drive to categorize and control rationality would lay the groundwork for a bureaucratic, dehumanizing systems of modern totalitarianism, and underpinned the justifications for colonialism, racism, and gender equality. In post-World War II, in the post-World War II order, it is easy to actually say how it all went wrong, but let's not be so hasty in our judgment, but rather deepen our understanding of the pragmatism, the paradigm shift that shook the world of 1700s.
I'm just going to reread that card for you.
Please do, because your handwriting was all sorts of small and squirrely.
It was. So, Horkheimer and, I wanted to say Andor there. I'm sure that's not quite right. Theodore Adorno. Okay, not Andor, Adorno. Got it. Okay, so they argued that the drive to categorize and label and put everything in its perfect little clockwork box, which is what the Enlightenment really did think of the universal order.
Right, everything can be boxed into different categories.
What they said was ultimately that created systems that dehumanized everyone.
Yeah.
Right? And that dehumanization and, people's clinging to Enlightenment ideas underpinned the entire justification for racism, gender inequality, colonialism, imperialism.
So it only because of their blind following to the hopes that reason would set them free.
Their insistence that there was a natural order to things, that they had figured out the natural order of things, and that progress would be forever ongoing. That no matter what people did, the long arm of progress was always going to lead them to a better place. And that justified any horror that they could commit, because it wouldn't matter in the long run. They were going to get to that better place eventually. And so these 20th century philosophers are like, actually, so let's be clear, what it created was absolute horror. What it created was terror.
Yeah.
And it at the cost of absolutely untold millions of lives.
Yeah.
Not even beginning in the 1700s, but, definitely from 1700s on. Really accelerating. The death toll, as bad as it was during the 30 Years' War, the War of the Roses, all these other wars that we have talked about and will talk about.
Because the Enlightenment still trickles down to today.
The Enlightenment, and so there are reasons, I think, questioning Rousseau's inherent goodness of man, and I like Rousseau.
I know you do.
Rousseau is a good guy, but, insecure as fuck. But questioning his, questioning his inherent goodness of man.
Yeah.
I think that's where people really went astray.
Yeah.
I really do. Anyway, so that's our episode for today. It's the overview. We're going to get deeper into these Enlightenment concepts.
Yeah, we are.
Because understanding them helps us understand the world as it really was when the French Revolution kicks off.
Right. It's really the heat of the war.
Right.
The revolution.
These are the ideas that are driving the people. Yeah, it's about that famine. It's about the terrible winters. It's about the income inequality. It is about all of those things, but it's also about this. So we're going to get into that. We're going to keep going. Thank you so much for joining us. Oh, wait, hold on. We haven't gone to the subscribe, share. Yeah, do that. And look for some big changes upcoming after we're done with the French Revolution.
Yeah.
Because we've got some great ideas to bring to you. Anyway, thank you so much. Live long and prosper.
Bye.